This is Joe from ArtAlienTV. Now today I've got a pair of satellite images to show you, which are really cool. They're a stereo pair, and I'll show you one of them now. This is one of them, and we have, right in the centre here, a rectangular structure surrounded by geometric structures and shapes, which I think some of which are artificial. Not all of them necessarily, but some of these look very artificial. Some of them don't look so artificial. And I've got another one here. This is the same area, but this was taken slightly further over to the right, I think. And what I've done is I've marked out some of these structures, I'm going to call them, with outlines here, just to show you how straight and geometric some of these are. Okay. Now this one's a little bit darker. This one's a bit brighter. So I did mark up this one as well, but I thought I'd leave this one as it is, so you can just look at this one normally, and then you can compare it to this one, and compare the actual geometric shapes that I've added here to outline them, okay? And you can turn these off by going up into the corner here. You can just tick this box here to remove them, like this, okay? Now look at this one. Now this is the one that caught my eye initially. This one here, which is rectangular, and you can see you've got a straight wall here, a straight wall here, well, relatively straight wall. This is filled in with sand. It's all drifted up against this, and we have next to it a perfectly straight wall here, a ridge with a wall coming along here, and we have this structure here, which is more of a sort of D shape. We've got a rectangular one here. We've got this weird thing here with what seems to be some ruins inside it here, just here. And we've got this one here, which is like an E or B shape. And if you look at it on the second map, second image here, I've marked it just here. You can see a bit more of it on this one. And let's switch these outlines back on. It's kind of like a B, but it's got this sort of rectangular shape here as well. This is absolutely mental. And the wall, the dividing wall here, is absolutely amazing. Look how straight that is. We've got a straight black line going across here. Let's look at it in this one. It's a bit brighter on this one. You can see this line. Now that line is absolutely dead straight. And when you actually put a line on here, you can actually use it like a ruler. And you can see that that is absolutely perfectly straight, right? Perfectly straight, okay? Like a fine black line, and it's got sand drifted up against it. And it's next to this thing here, which is strange in itself, because we have this kind of wall here, like a ridge, but we have something inside it, like some building foundation or some kind of structure in the ground here, in the rock. Okay? Absolutely insane. But the main one was this one here. I mean, look at this. An absolutely almost perfect rectangle with what seems to be an entrance part here, right? And then we have, next to that entrance area, we have this perfectly straight ridge or wall, part of the structure here, and there's like a wall coming down here with an entrance going into this one, right? And then we got all these other ones. There's actually down here, there's a square. Now this one is completely wrecked and ruined, but we have a square structure here. You can see parts of it here, right? And then we have another one here, which is sort of a seven-sided or six-sided shape here, but it's all kind of broken up, the edges of it. Now, what I think they were doing, now I've shown this before, what I think the Martians were doing is they were actually utilising naturally hollowed out structures and then modifying them and living inside them. Now, these may have actually been domes, or what may have looked like buttes at the time when they were built into. So were probably covered over and would have looked just like buttes on the ground. And we've got an example of one up here. This is a butte here. Now you see these in Gale Crater, you see them in Jezero Crater, you see them all over Mars. And they just look like little hills and little buttes and sort of eroded kind of mounds, right? Now, most of them look kind of natural up here. But when you come down here, we start getting all these hollowed out geometric shapes, like this rectangle here in the center. Okay, there's a large one here, it's hollowed out. Now, I'm not saying that all of these were necessarily artificial. What I'm saying is, it seems like they found naturally hollowed out structures, or partially hollowed out structures, and modified them by building walls inside them, and possibly living inside these. This would have been like an oval shape, this one, with a dividing wall halfway across, just here. Right? Now, what I've done is I've got two of them here. Obviously, I've got this one. This is number 2. This is a bit darker. And number 1, which is a bit brighter, right? But I've also got the actual pages up here from the high-rise mission, which is the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the high-rise camera, I should say. There's one, and there's the other. Now, the actual explanation they've got here is hills and rings, but they don't actually know what they are, because if you read this, it says, this image shows a group of hills as well as ridges that form circular patterns that resemble rings, right? The origin of these features is not fully understood and may be related to the eruption of magma or mud, okay? Or alternatively due to salt rising to the surface. Okay. Now that may well be true, but if you look at them, why would there be a square one or rectangular one right here in the middle, with one here with a completely straight ridge or wall there, and then we've got this other one with a completely straight wall dividing it into 2, this one here, and then we have this weird structure in here. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some clips, because it's very hard to get this across, how geometric some of these are. And it's not until you actually mark them out, like I've done here on this map, that you can see how perfect some of these are, like this one. I'm calling that the B structure. We've got a rectangular one. This one's sort of rectangular, but it's actually a pentagon. It's pentagonal. You can see that this would have actually been larger inside, but it's filled in with sand here, and you've got a slope coming down here of sand. Right? And the same goes for these. We've got all these shapes. Now, this one here is perfectly square when you mark it out. You can see the corners here that are still left. There's bits of it still standing. Now, I'm not saying these were built. I think these were naturally formed structures, possibly from mud bubbling up from the subsurface, like many, many millions of years earlier. And they built into them and put walls, dividing walls across, and these were probably covered over like a dome. So this would have been like an ovoid or sort of rectangular dome shape, a slightly curved rectangle, and this one would have been a sort of rectangular shape or a pentagonal shape. But this may have collapsed down. This may have actually been perfectly rectangular at one point, but may have partly collapsed here by the looks of it. Okay, so I'll show you these clips I've got, and I'll put these in again at the end of the video so you can take a longer look yourself. Follow the links below and check out these gigapans I've put up, because you've got to see and look and zoom in yourself, because there's lots of other features as well, which I haven't actually shown here. Let me show you up here. There's this one here, which is like almost like a double wall structure here, this bright one. And here we have like a square part here, just here, like a plateau. And there's like a square structure right there, okay? Just there. You can see this kind of angled structure here, which looks like a building. And it's on the edge of this kind of almost perfectly square plateau here, right? And just here, there seems to be a building here as well. Just here. We've got a little black rectangle there, and we have rectangles in the regolith on the ground, which look like they're partially buried just here. So this looks like a structure with a a rectangular sort of hole in it. So this may be walls and an internal structure there, like a room, okay? Then we have this weird thing here, which looks a bit like a structure here. I mean, when you start looking closer, and I do advise you get the hover zoom magnifier like I've got here. This will make a lot more sense to you if you do that, and it'd be a lot more fun, okay? But when you start looking into these things, a lot of them, yeah, they look kind of natural, but why would they have perfect, absolutely ruler straight walls going from one side to the other? Unless these have been modified and turned into dwellings and structures that were lived in, okay? That's the only explanation I can come to with this. You can't tell me that this one here is completely natural, right? Now let me show you the clips I've got, and I'll show you the raw clip, and then I'll show you the enhanced one. This is a raw clip of that. This is enhanced brightness. You can really see that shape. And here's the colorized one. So there it is. And you can see here how straight this ridge is here on the right here. And we have like a rectangular structure here, which looks like it's sort of joined to this, actually. And inside you've got all the sand drifted up against this, but we've actually got a rectangle here as well, just here. So this slope, I mean, it looks like it was cut into this slope almost. So we've got a rectangle here, but we've also got this slope here. And when you look at it on here, on this one, you can actually see here that there's a sort of rectangle there as well, just here, right? So there we are. We've got rooms, we've got dividing walls, we've got internal structures, we've got all sorts going on here. Absolutely insane. Absolutely crazy. And we've got what seem to be structures up here as well. I mean, there's loads in here. I mean, if I was going to show you all of them and zoom into every little detail, we'd be here all day. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it to some of you space detectives out there to have a look at this yourself. Take your own clips, zoom in, use the magnifier, take screenshots, play with the contrast, brighten them up, and you will see these quite clearly, okay? I'm just going to run through some of this stuff. So we got that one, the main one, which is the one near the center, a rectangular one, there we are. And this is a clip of the overall area. There's the B-shaped one there. But look at this stuff. Does that look natural to you? It really doesn't look natural to me, right? And like I said before, and I have shown this in Gale Crater, especially, that a lot of these butte structures and little hills are hollow. Some of them have windows, some of them have entrances, and some of them you can see where the sides collapse down, and you can see separate rooms inside with dividing walls, okay? We've seen these from the ground in Gale Crater, from the rover images. So we can see them on the ground, we can see them from the air. So they're definitely there. To the untrained eye, these look like natural structures, but they're not. Now this is the one with the ridge here, and we got this weird kind of like thing inside it just here, which looks like a building or the remains of a building. And I've done a sort of selection of it here, where you can see this sort of angled part here with what looks like little walls and stuff in there, like a wall here and a wall going this way and another one here. This looks like a structure, okay? So we've got all sorts of stuff going on here. And There are loads more. I've just picked out the main, most obvious ones that will show up well on the mobile device when you're viewing this. But there are loads of crazy shapes and structures here, okay? Including squares, pentagonal shapes, octagonal shapes, septagonal shapes, and rectangles. And some are more sort of random shapes, but they're straight edges, okay? Like this one, with an entrance here next to this one. And I don't see how these can be said to be natural. I mean, look at this. It's almost perfectly rectangular, this one, with a kind of rectangle in the corner there, right? And when you go really close, let's go right in, there seems to be like a little structure right here. Just here. And when you look closely at a lot of this stuff, you will see that there are internal structures as well, which are buried, and you can just see the edges of them, like this one here. It's all kind of filled in sand, so there were probably loads of dividing walls in between some of these outer walls here. Now, these were probably formed by mud bubbling up and then hardened into rock. But they've been modified and they've been built into, and it looks like they've kind of dug into the side of this part here and turned it into a sort of large house. You know, and the scale is accurate on this. These are huge. This one is like 400 meters across, this rectangular one, because you got the ruler here. See that? If I zoom out, I mean, if you go diagonally, it's almost 500. It's about 500 meters. That's huge. That's half a kilometer from one corner there to that corner, just there. So these are massive. So these aren't actual single houses. These are more like castle-sized structures. They're like huge buildings, all kind of linked up with dividing walls. And there may have been water flowing between some of these as well. So these would have been like little islands almost, like I've shown before. Unbelievable, the size of these things. See the gap, that gap there between this wall and that wall is 100 meters. And some of them, like these down here, are completely dilapidated. But you can see the outline here still, whereas parts of it are still sticking up. A bit like when you see a ruined castle or a ruined abbey or something like you see in Europe, some of the ancient structures, or like an old Roman ruin, where you just see parts of the outer wall and all the internal stuff is filled in. It's very similar. Very similar. Absolutely crazy, right? So let me know what you think. These are huge, and I'm sure there's loads of other stuff buried in this sand. We're only seeing the larger outer walls. These were probably covered and may have just looked like kind of domes initially, but they collapsed inwards. I mean, before they collapsed or were destroyed, they may well have been hit from above. They would have looked more like some of these up here, which are just kind of like slightly geometrically shaped hills and buttes, okay? Like this one. This one's got a kind of nice shape to it. But I wonder if you were to drop a device on top of that, whether it would blow a hole in it and it's hollow inside. Because a lot of these look like they're hollowed out. The remains of hollow structures, large hollow structures, which were converted by the looks of it and built into like city structures, like compounds, large compounds, walled, thick. I mean, look how thick this wall is. I mean, that's like 40 meters from there to there. But the main part here is probably about 10 or 15 meters. But that's still very, very thick. Okay? And this little straight wall here is much thinner. This black one, this is probably only about a meter thick, maybe two, right? I'm still trying to get my head around this. Not only are these very geometrically shaped, with perfectly straight walls and right-angled corners, but they're on a huge scale. And when you start looking at them, you'll see loads of these things. And some of them look more natural like these perhaps, but are they? Is this one natural? We've got straight edges here. Why would they have straight edges? They shouldn't have straight edges. These should be much more rounded if these were natural. Now, you do get, in geology, you do get cell structures which are formed, crystalline structures, which can often look quite geometric in the ground, in mountain sides and cliff edges. You can see them sometimes. But they're not like this. They're not like this at all. This is intelligent design, I would say. These are intelligent structures that are built into natural cell-like structures which were formed naturally by the looks of it. So we have both natural and artificial structures together combined. Okay? So thanks for watching, everybody. I'll put these clips in again in a second. Check out my channel, check out my playlists. I've got a whole load of videos about structures and city structures and buildings, and there's an irrigation system here in this one. There's the Mars City that's on top of Mount Sharp. Well, it's on the lower slopes of Mount Sharp. I've shown many videos about this. We've got pyramids and domes and all sorts there. We've got irrigation channels. We've got this one which looks like on the edge of Belva crater here, we have like a village or town on the side of the hill here. Okay, we've got a dome here up on Mount Sharp. We've got an actual structure here built into Mount Sharp. We've got big buildings on Mount Sharp here, like this one, this huge structure here, and loads more. I mean, going right back, I've been doing these for about 11 years now. And it's similar, actually, what we're looking at today to this one, Mars Fortress City, Atlantis Chaos Structures. Very similar in scale and similar kind of structures on the ground, okay, which are completely ruined and look like they've been hit from above with explosive devices from possibly aircraft, okay. There's like loads of little craters and stuff on the ground, some very large craters also. So check all this stuff out. There's loads of examples on the ground and from satellite images of structures, city structures, buildings, with rooms, with doors, with windows, all sorts of things here. And if you go through this playlist, Mars Buildings and Structures, you will see countless examples going back many years, okay? This is just a few of them. So thanks for watching, everybody. Check out the links below. Check out these yourself. Get the hover zoom magnifier if you haven't got it already. Look at these things up close. You will see large geometric structures with smaller structures inside which are buried in sand. And if only we could uncover and dig some of these out, I'm sure there would be loads of smaller buildings inside. These are kind of large castle-sized structures. So these were probably citadels or armoured structures with walls, and they would have had lots of smaller structures inside, like you would see in a castle. Okay, thanks for watching. I will see you soon.